exciting session for you all. Different take on it, lots of faces, lots of examples. I think will be a whirlwind of great inspiration for you today as you head into or beginning your spring break in your district. So go ahead and let's get going on these slides here. All right, I do have this ready to go. So hopefully this links work. Nope, did not keep the hyperlink. After my slides, I will put the actual URL in there. I was hoping the paste worked, but I will put those in the chat for you. But we have many resources that we're going to link in the chat, and you'll have access to the recording afterwards. So I am Stephanie Henry. I'm one of the co-leads here. I've been with the firm where I work at for 8 years, but worked in a school district for nearly 16 years prior to joining education analytics, near and dear to my heart. Still help customers all over the country with strategy, people, process, technologies. So many of us have licenses for Tableau, maybe kind of are stuck in a rut. We think about how to expand, helping folks think about data quality. Is kind of a big piece, right? We got to have amazing dashboards on the end, but how do we get data inputted correctly, cleaned, transformed, and ready for Tableau? So that's where I spend most of my days. I've been leading this group. Also have one in Colorado as well. So really enjoy supporting the community. And yes, so if you were part of the last one, you saw a puppy picture, and now you have a 4-month-old puppy picture here. she's growing just a little. She's still a little skinny mini. I have been using Tableau since 2014. Have been to many conferences, and I'll talk to that in a few slides. I'm hoping you all can join me here in a couple months. I'm going to hand it over to one of my other co-leads out of the three of us.
And I'm David Ogden, coming to you from not so sunny Seattle today. We're here in Renton School District, the beautiful Renton School District, and really excited for you all today. You can see some of my facts over there. But if you do ever need help with French or football, I at one time was the only French teacher who was also a football coach in the state of Georgia. But look at me now. Here I am helping co-lead Tableau K12 Tug. We're really excited that you're here and glad to have you along with us today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Raquel Vandenes, calling all the way from finally warmer Richmond, Virginia. I've been in education for a bit over 10 years, going from the classroom to working with data and technology. And I've met Tableau in 2021 and just absolutely fell in love with all the capabilities and everything that Tableau can do. Fun fact about me, I love traveling and trying new foods. Been to 19 countries and hopefully to go 21 soon. Okay, and so here are some important upcoming events. March 19th, we actually have a spring break collab with other tugs. So if you would like to join, that's March 19th, and here is the link. We also have Tableau Conference coming up May 5th through 7th, and the K12 networking event also taking place during the conference. And our next meeting would be June 10th. We're still looking for topics, so if you have something that you're really interested in, just please let us know.
So on the topic of conference, hopefully we will see many of you out there. If you're headed out, let me know. We're going to make sure that we connect while you're out there. Make sure that you're also watching for the online. Not everything is a one-to-one, but they do post many of the content out and stream it. So make sure you stay connected. Even if you didn't get authorization to travel, you can still connect in many ways. So lots of activities, hands-on sessions if you're there. Again, there's a big party, lots of activities. But please know that if you're not going, doesn't mean that there's not ways to connect. So again, just make sure you're checking that website and registering for the online capabilities. If you, I'm sure you've been getting registration notices from Tableau in your account executive, but please note that there is a generous discount that's given to the education industry. So make sure that you are using those codes. I believe there's still the draft letter, so you can forward on to your leadership team for the reasons why it's so valuable to attend. As you had seen in my intro slide, I've attended almost all of them, obviously, except not the one during COVID since 14. Very valuable, very, very valuable. Tons of conference sessions, but even the networking ability is just amazing. So many great people just willing to share and connect. So definitely worth the travel.
Yeah, and let me tell you, this really is a great discount. Now it's Seattle, we have 10% sales tax, so it cost me $770. But it really is a great discount for those who are in public institutions. If you're joining us from a public college or from a state educational association, a state educational agency, anything like that, this is your price. And it is really fun to meet people there. Fabiola asks if there is any information about the K12 networking event. What happens is that there will be a EDU meet and greet, and we'll be part of that. I don't know if Stephanie, you and I maybe will create something additional, or maybe just to kind of go out on the town. Sometimes Plant Moran sponsors something, but we'll see how that works out.
We are. We've been working with Tableau, so it'll be our 3rd year hosting it. So if you've been out before, it'll be at the same amazing venue. We've already secured the same site. We secured it last year. So on the 5th, there'll be a happy hour. It's usually starting around 4:30. We just have to work out the details. Come join us for 60, 90 minutes. Food, some appetizers, some drinks, conversations with K12 friends. So we will formalize an invitation and send that out. The account execs are going to help make those connections. And if you haven't seen anything, just reach out to me. We just have to work out the logistics. But we do have the date reserved. And like David said, there's usually during the conference set times where we can all come together. And I know David and I like to connect, and so we can always meet for lunch or breakfast, or if there's not a planned event on a different date, I think all of us would be happy to get together. I think that often happens with a lot of the K12 folks. If you're traveling by yourself or 1 or 2 people, it's great to connect with folks and have friends while you're traveling.
Yeah, who else are you going to find at the Tableau conference that likes to talk about student information systems, right? Yeah, we're your people. And it is a great event, and it's within walking distance to the conference and all that sort of stuff, thanks to our sponsor, Plant Moran. So today is not just a rainy day in Seattle, it is also holiday, a holiday for those who are the Hindu, where you get to throw fabulous colors at each other. And here we have a couple of Tableau public dashboards or stories about holiday. You can see them here in the chat. Tell me which you like better. You like the Let's Celebrate Holi, or you like the whole DataFam colors? The whole DataFam colors is a great place to find the wide variety of palettes and things that are available to you. Give us your choice right here, left or right, Holi or DataFam colors. Throw in the colors or celebrating the holiday. Holi, okay, there we go with DataFam. We've got one of each. Thank you, thank you. So far, the colors are leading. Terrific. Thank you. Yes, we want to make sure. Oh, yeah. Like the face. Yes. Do like the face, although Tom likes the colors. But you want to make sure you get your fingers warmed up for more questions and comments in the chat. This is the way we like to do it. Our next Tableau public ones today is actually Fight Against Sexual Exploitation Day. In the news these days. Sometimes an uncomfortable topic for folks, but today's the day. And so want to make sure we've got these, highlight these Tableau Public. On Tableau Public, you can see so many terrific visualizations. Some of our presenters today have put things on Tableau Public. And so we've got that going on too. And last but not least, it is Equal Pay Day. Let's make sure we fight for that equality, equal pay day. As you can see on the left, we have the fun hex map of the United States. a good way to demonstrate the United States sometimes in equal proportions. And then on the right there, we've got the gap between men and women, still trying to close that gap since I've been born, which is now, and I'm a fire horse. I was going to do fire horse for people, but we're going to do, so I want you to know I'm a fire horse. I was born in the year of fire horse, years of the fire horse as well. Just wanted to throw that out there. But Equal Pay Day, we're happy to celebrate that as well. We'll keep on moving on. And we'd like to have your announcements. Is it a special day for you? Tell us what's going on. Do you have a birthday, anniversary? Is there a Tableau opportunity that you have for others? Put it in the chat. What is today for you or this month? Gotta have some March birthdays out there. I'll share mine. Sunday was St. David's Day. Any Welsh people out there? My name is David. Always celebrate St. David's Day. Leeks and daffodils and the dragons. Rugby. Oh, happy birthday to Stephanie this month, celebrating another year around the sun. Oh, terrific, Tom. You're presenting visualizations at a conference next week. That's great. Congratulations. And Aisha says, this month will end Ramadan. Yes. Hope you have a good celebration at the end of each day as well. Getting some food and liquid in your body at the end of at sundown. Barak Ramadan. Oh, somebody's got Jennifer says their district is hiring a CIO for the first time. Terrific. Hopefully they'll be also a great Tableau fan, as Jennifer is. Okay, well, if you have some special things and you just want to keep them hidden to yourself, we celebrate you, and we're glad that you're along with us in this data community. We do have fabulous prizes today. Glad you're here. Make sure you know that we're going to be giving away 2 $25 gift cards to the Tableau store where you can buy some socks, mouse pads, things that are $25 or less. If you are not eligible to win, let me know. I'll take your name off the board. And if you need to be less than $25 and you win, just let me know that as well. These gift cards are from the Tableau store that is going away. So this particular one, you want to act fast because this particular Tableau store, they're changing stores and the one store is not going to give the credit from the other store. So this store, you'll need to use your gift card by March 16th, but no problem. As others who are on the thing have known, previous winners know, I send it out right away. I've got it ready for you to go when we do those 2 different Wheel of Names. And the Wheel of Names we'll do shortly, but so you know. Oh, it doesn't show up in this. I have to pick a different tab. Never mind. I'll show you the Wheel of Names later. But first, we're going to do the K12 Community Spotlight. Today's guest, at first a quote from Jessica Kenji Brown Jackson. Sometimes it's not fun to be in the spotlight, but today we have with us a man who has been in the spotlight before, Bo McCready. He is a data visualization expert. He was last year's IronViz champion. It was really fun to see him and meet him last year. He himself has his own Bo Knows Data. Now, Bo, are you a 2 specialty person like athlete, or do you do like Tableau and cooking or Tableau and marathon running?
Yes, absolutely. And I appreciate you understanding the reference to, I feel like I've learned that the Bo Knows references work for anyone over the age of 30 and completely confuse everyone else. But yes, totally.
Or is just an Auburn fan?
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Perfect.
Go War Eagles. Well, Bo, tell us a bit about yourself. How did you start out? And I understand that you actually worked in a K12 district. So student information systems are not a stranger to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so this is, I'd like to think this is still at least somewhat my community. This is, absolutely the world I came from, where I learned Tableau and where my career started. So, I earned my doctorate in educational leadership and policy analysis at the University of Wisconsin. And I started my career working in the central office for the Madison Metropolitan School District in 2012. And maybe a month or two after I started there, I received the district's first Tableau license. My boss, who was our CIO at the time, said, "Hey, I heard this Tableau thing is pretty cool. Figure out what you can do with it." And I will forever be grateful for that, because 14 years later, it has kind of launched me on a career journey that I never would have imagined was possible when I was in ed school. So yeah, it's been an awesome ride. Been working in Tableau for 14 years now. Did about 10 years in education, working for different central offices in Wisconsin and then down here in Texas as well. And then transitioned to the tech industry a few years ago. But yeah, I had the advantage before I started creating Tableau work publicly and getting involved with the community of, quietly practicing inside a school district for 6 years. And yeah, just forever grateful for it. Super excited to be part of this group and kind of get back to my first professional home.
And tell us what inspires you to do it outside of work?
Yeah, I think, for folks who, for folks who like to use Tableau in their free time too, I think creativity is just a really important thing for kind of all of us to practice. And, for me, I've really enjoyed how Tableau really kind of feels like a blank canvas that, you're almost doing a form of art on. And so, as I started getting deeper into data visualization and both the art and the science of it, I started seeing things I loved and thinking, I wonder if I could do something like that, or like, oh, I wish this graph were about this topic that I'm actually a lot more interested in. And I think from there, once I got kind of invited to start participating in tugs and events like this, I thought, hey, I can do this too. I have things I'm curious about. I have hobbies, passions, topics that I want to learn more about, and this feels like kind of a cool and fun and interesting way to do that. And I think another thing I'll mention is that when I started my career with the Madison schools, one of my first days on the job, I was lucky enough to head down to Chicago and do an in-person training with a man named Edward Tufte, who is kind of one of the luminaries in the data visualization field. Controversial sometimes, but definitely wrote kind of some of the most famous books that are still referenced today for how to inspire creativity and better data visualization. So I think as an early 20-something in my first job, being able to jump in and have training with him directly was kind of an unbelievable way to kick things off. And so I had the interest for a long time, and then really had a lot of fun doing this, and started trying to figure out how I could blend it with my hobbies too.
That's terrific. I have his book, two of his books. They're really so inspiring too. Yeah, of his visualizations and how he just goes about it. That's really great. So, what's the smallest school district you worked in? How many students?
Oh gosh, well, I mean, I guess the smallest was about 27,000 students. So generally on the larger end. But
generally on the larger end. Terrific. And tell us a bit about this Wisconsin DPI report card scores.
Oh yeah, no, this is a fun one, and actually this was probably one of the first things I posted publicly. But back in the day when I was working for the Madison schools, I'm sure this is a familiar context for a lot of folks on this call, but the state came down with state accountability report cards that we then folks in roles like mine were placed in the position of interpreting them, understanding them, and helping them communicate, or helping our leaders, our superintendents, communicate about what we were learning from them. And so this was a cool project. I'm still really proud of this one because it's kind of a fun integration of different chart types and custom colors, and the map still looks pretty nice. And this was our way to really kind of think a little bit differently about the scores that were being presented to us, and kind of, at the time, our DPI had a big claim that they had done a lot of things to kind of account for demographic differences between schools and districts. and that the scores were quote unquote fair because they had adjusted for all of those things. And as we dug a little deeper into the data, we started to see that maybe those patterns were still there in a way that maybe the designers of the accountability system had. I don't know whether they intended it or not, but the patterns were definitely still there. And so offering this level of interactivity, posting it publicly, sharing it with our school board, was a good chance for folks to dive in a little bit more and kind of, get some additional context on what these looked like. You'll see that even, gosh, at least 10 years later, we're still at 283 views. So it wasn't necessarily, a huge popular success, but, I'd like to think within that the right, 283 people saw it and were able to develop a deeper understanding.
Yeah, and gaining data to move people to action. That's what we're all about today in the show and tell. Now, we're so happy that you've joined us on your lunch break, your 30 minutes of lack of supervision of students here in our staff lounge across the world. And Bo is going to be the person to provide the color commentary for each of these show and tells. And I will stop sharing my screen now, wherever I can find it. And we'll let the others go ahead. And thanks very much to all of you. And take it away, team.
I think we had, David, are you going to do the card later? I think that was the next. But we can wait. We can.
Oh no, I forgot I was next.
You're good.
This is the first card. First, I have to take somebody's name off the list because I've asked that. So I'll do that. Thank you. There we go. Now back to here. Yes. Sorry to slow us down here. We're going to share my screen. That's here. And this is our first wheel of names. Here's we are. We love the data. We've got you in here. Hopefully got everybody, including those that came a little later. And here goes the first winner. Look at it spin. Where is it going to stop? So many people. It's in the A's. And Avanish Kumar. Send me an email. I'll drop my email in the chat. And you are the first winner. Congratulations, Avanish.
All right. Congrats. We'll go ahead and let Jim Long start sharing his screen. He comes to us from National Heritage Academy in Michigan. And he's first up for our show and tell. Take it away, Jim.
Yeah, thank you very much. So while I'm getting this shared, I'll just do a quick introduction. My name's Jim Long. I'm a business intelligence developer for National Heritage Academy, NHA. We are a charter management organization. We service about 67,000 students across 103 schools across 9 states. One thing so the dashboard I'll be sharing is called Common Assessment Student Momentum. So of all the students that I mentioned that we service, we do administer common assessments across all of our schools. Generally, a student will take a common assessment at least once per week, sometimes twice a week. In weeks 9, 18, 27, we have I would say a higher stakes common assessment that we call an interim. And those interims, we've done a lot of work of linking to the probability of being successful on the state test. But where we were lacking was the in between those weeks. So from weeks 1 to 8, 10 to 17, so on and so on. We were losing some of the intervention, the students that were needed for intervention. And so that's kind of the context of where this dashboard comes from. Kind of going from this from top to bottom. The top of this dashboard is really to give our school leaders context. So this dashboard is meant for principals, for deans, and then also for our directors of school quality, which oversee anywhere from 6 to 8 schools. So kind of running through this report, almost like I'd be presenting this the first time to a school leader. Again, like I said, the top of the report is meant to give context to how the school has been performing thus far in the school year. So for Long Academy, we have 78% of our students are at or above a scaled score of 2.7. 2.7, we did some analytic work, and we saw that students that were above a 2.7 out of 4 were more likely than not to be successful on those interims that I mentioned before. So that's where the 2.7 comes from. We do have a spark line on there just to give a little bit of context of what has happened throughout the school year. With the spark line, we could see the school's been relatively flat throughout most of the school year. And that's actually one of the issues that we saw in the first iteration of this report, is that there wasn't a lot of movement once we get into like the heart of the school year of students moving above or below that 2.7, which is why we have those containers at the bottom that I'll talk about in a little bit. Just moving left to right, we have our distribution of student scores, just a visual of that to kind of give an idea of where are most of our students falling. And then to the right, we have our just the student count. So of those students above the 2.7, that's about 78%, which we saw before, but the actual student number of that is 591. Now, the main purpose of this dashboard, like I mentioned before, is to really identify students within certain time periods of the school year instead of just looking at the school year as a whole. We did have requests that we wanted to look at 2 different lengths of time or time periods. We had some school leaders that said, I want a really, really tight window. If I introduce something at the school, I want to see, is that having an effect? And I want to see if it's having an effect quickly, in case I need to make adjustments. And then we wanted a longer term trend. So we settled on 6 weeks. So how is a student doing in a 6-week period? Now for the containers, we wanted to start with almost like a band, just a number. And then as we moved to the right, we wanted to give more context to each of those individual qualities. I'm going to use the 6-week trend at the bottom. So for the 6-week trend, we are looking at the student's performance over 6 weeks, and we're comparing that as to what we expect the student to do based on the common assessments that they've taken. So our first number, the 25%, at the school, we have 25% of the students that are scoring above expected based on the common assessments that they took during the 6-week time frame. Moving to the right, though, we're now distinguishing what type of students are we talking about. So at the top of the dashboard, we talked about students were above that 2.7 or students were below that 2.7. And what we wanted to do was to break out of those 2 groups, which students are performing above expected and what students are performing below expected. One of the feedback items we got from our school leaders was that, especially at high performing schools, they're saying, we have a lot of dashboards that say students are high performers, they're above that 2.7, but we don't know if those students are growing. And so that's what this part of the dashboard is hoping to really zero in on. So for this one, it's the circles will highlight where most of the students are falling, so just the largest percentage. In this case, 44% of the students are above that 2.7 and they're performing at or above expected. To be able to drill down a little bit more, because we're still at school level, we do have that breakdown by grade. You can switch between seeing it at the 2-week or by the default seeing it at the 6-week. Staying with the 6-week, one of the things I can notice as a school leader, if this was my school, is that 3rd grade is significantly lower than all of the other grades. So that might be an area where I want to zero in on. You can click and drag to view multiple grades at once, or you can just view 1 grade. So I'm going to stick with the 3rd grade. When you click on a grade or when you click and drag, the entire dashboard is going to update to reflect that selection. So now I can see all the information for 3rd grade. 3rd grade has 80% of their students at or above 2.7, so that's a really high number. But again, we only have 5% of those students that are performing above expected over the past 6 weeks. So even though they're high performers, they're still performing below what we would expect them to at this point of the school year. And then just to call out to that highlight did change. So 59%, now that's our largest area, students above that 2.7, but performing below expected. The action part of this dashboard then comes at the bottom. So I've identified 3rd grade as an area of concern. I've identified it's the students above that 2.7 are performing below expected. So I can come down now to the student table and I can filter to those selections. So we have it at 3rd grade already because I selected above. I could filter to a specific class if I wanted to, but right now I just want to see all my third graders that are at or above that 2.7. And then I want to see the 6-week trend that is trending down. So we'll say below expected. And so doing that, now I have a list of all the third graders that are above that 2.7 and are trending down. I could change my sort too. So maybe I want to see the student that is the most furthest away. I don't know if that's grammatically correct from what they're expected to be at. So I'm going to change the sort to that. So that would mean student 291 is now the furthest away in third grade from their expected growth. I can click on the student if I want to see those details. So clicking in will bring now the student history over the past 9 weeks or so. I can see their class, so I can identify that teacher as well. The last thing is, it's not in this dashboard, but usually we provide an Excel download for our school leadership as well for when they're meeting with those teachers during O3s. But we have found that principals and deans are now starting to use our dashboards live during those O3 meetings instead of just relying on the Excel. I felt like I bulldozed through that. Hopefully I kept it under my 7 minutes, but I think that is the end of it right there.
Yeah, no, that's terrific. So now, Bo, give us some thoughts about this. I put in the chat some things that I liked. Hope our audience also puts in the chat some things that you like. Thank you, Jim, for that great explanation. Give us your thoughts, Bo.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I just want to say, right away, visually, this is really, really top-notch work. There's really strong use of color throughout this project, but at the same time, you've also used different techniques to kind of multiple encode the information as well. So, you have color, but also bar height, or you have a label, or kind of all these other things to make sure that we can understand things in multiple ways. I also, I appreciate here how you've included graphs without axes. I think that can feel like a bold choice sometimes, and I think the first time you make graphs where you turn those off, it can feel a little risky, but you're not losing any information here, and it definitely makes the design a lot cleaner that way. I think too, another thing you've done really, really nicely is with your color palette at the top here, but then also with the blue and orange, you've kept those colors having a consistent meaning throughout the product. And so that's going to reduce our users' mental load a lot. I know that if I see blue, I can generally understand what blue is going to be referring to. And I think that kind of thing is really good. Lots and lots of nested stories within this. You just had a chance to demo those on video as well, but it's always fun when there's a dashboard where you have your high level story, and then kind of the more you interact, you dig deeper, learn more. The way you've nested that, I think, works really, really well here. Kind of a few smaller pieces of feedback, or maybe just a little bit related to labeling. When I see, like, in the student momentum section here, not really sure what to expect when I see the flashlights. Maybe there's a little text label or something, or like some of the things that you can click on that then filter other things. Sometimes a quick little note to let people know that that's expected behavior, might be helpful. I think with the filters that you've used in this project, really good, really useful stuff. Personally, when there's a lot of filters with a lot of options, I like using that little apply option, or the apply button that you can select when you're building those. This dashboard is pretty fast, pretty responsive, but if people are using kind of multiple selections a lot, those kind of little pauses as you're navigating through the filters, can kind of add up. So I acknowledge that one's personal preference, but I might consider trying it. Also, there's date ranges referenced here, things like week 19, 2-week averages, previous week. I think even adding a little note to just kind of remind people, and these are the days that I mean, along with that could help as well, especially if things get kind of, screenshotted and, dumped into slide presentations, and then someone goes back later and, is not really sure when that thing came from. I think that can be a nice little touch too. But in general, this is a really exceptional project. I appreciate the demo. This looks awesome. And you've made a lot of very small, but very obviously intentional choices that I think, elevate this to a really high level. So great work.
You're on mute, Jim.
Oh, just said thanks. That was it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really, really love the dashboard. I think it's very, very powerful. Next up, we have Kate Ori, Data Assessment Analyst, coming to us from Chico Unified School District. And well, take over.
Hi, everybody. Let me get my screen shared real quick. All right. So I, as you said, come from a school district in Northern California, and we have about 12,000 students, and this is our grade exploration for our secondary sites. Our district admin needed a way to look across all 3 junior highs and 2 high schools and spot grade trends, not just to answer the questions they already had, but to surface the problems they didn't know to look for yet. And that's what this is for. Just a quick note, because there's a lot going on here. We usually do 3 levels of dashboard, and this is the Explore dashboard that's meant to have a lot of data for our high level users to click around and find trends, rather than our Present dashboard, which is to give them the kind of the answers that they're looking for. You can see up over here, you can choose your grade level, year, and semester. And then you can look both at just enrollment trends. So what did our 7th grade English students look like by different demographic levels at the high schools? But you can also look at what those grades look like. And what we noticed when we started going through this was going into English 7, that was one of our foundational classes. Every 7th grader has to take English. And this was the first time we noticed that we had an 11% fail rate in our English 7 classes. We knew that there were, issues by testing and things like that, but it wasn't until we started clicking around through here and allowing our district level admin to look that we noticed, oh, we have a problem. And our superintendent saw this and said, oh, we need to figure out what's going on. And so our admin started looking through here and said, okay, well, last year, did our 6th graders have that problem in the spring? No. So they can go through and they can kind of figure out step by step what kind of problem we have. Is it a single class or a single school that has this issue? Is it all of our schools? Is it a testing issue? Did the curriculum change? Things like that. We can also look through and say, okay, of all of our students with Fs, how many of them are socioeconomically disadvantaged? How many of them are special education students? How many of them are in our variety of demographics that we look at versus how many of them aren't? And we can compare that across the way. We can also look at how last year's 8th graders did in their English classes versus how this year's 9th graders did in their high school classes. So we can compare schools, we can compare across time, we can see our enrollment trends and our grade trends, and all of this is presented to our high-level district admin who are used to exploring through more complex data and tracking along the way of what they're looking for as you go. It's kind of designed so that as you click through, when you're filtering, it sticks on there so you can see specifically, I'm looking at 8th graders, 25, 26 in the fall, and I have all of these choices to go through. We can also see how many students in general are receiving grades in the various levels. So we have 86% of our students scored at least one A. So we can also see our overall grading patterns. We can see what does that look like in our English classes. We can look at honors versus our standard class and see what those grading trends look like. So it's built so that we can answer the questions we already have, but that we can also kind of dig in and find trends that we weren't expecting, and look at a variety of different issues. Sorry, my computer's being a little funny. Kind of a note about how it's built. This is built from our ARIES going directly, our ARIES student information system going directly into a flow, and then updating into this. So I only have to update it once a year, and so it's directly connected to that. Any changes that are made get perfectly connected to it. This is the junior high tab. There's also a high school tab because those grade patterns look completely different. Also, these are usually our logos. This is anonymized data. And then once important information is found, like what was important to our superintendent, they can download the screen as a PDF or as a PowerPoint slide and then use that in their site meetings. The kind of next step with this one is building out, once we find those patterns and those things that our district admin want to talk about, creating a presentation view of what a specific site will care about or what the district admin wants the site admin to be looking at, and have a more present-oriented view. That was my really fast walkthrough, but that's my grades.
Thank you. That was amazing. And as someone mentioned in the chat, I love how it opens so many opportunities to explore the data and how actually fast the dashboard works, considering how much filtering you can do. And Bo?
Yeah, so I think this has kind of already been noted a little bit in the chat, but what I really love about this project is just the level of interactivity here. Simple designs on a dashboard can work really well. It's cool to see kind of wild stuff also, but in some cases a bunch of bar charts is going to meet your needs, and I think this is a good example of that. This responds well, this performs well. It obviously led to really important impacts that you talked about in your presentation, and it's just kind of it's a pleasure to interact with this type of exploratory tool. It's fun to click and see how things change, and even as someone who doesn't know the data at all, it's a really enjoyable kind of experience to work with it. Some things I might think about for this dashboard are maybe some additional headers or kind of explanatory text to maybe help new users, orient themselves. I had the opportunity to interact with this without having it presented to me first, and so it didn't take too long to figure out what the sections were about, but there's still kind of a little bit of friction, and so even some quick notes for like, if I do this, you can expect these things to happen, might be helpful, because maybe at the moment you're always in the room with people, the first time they interact with it, but if that doesn't happen in the future, I think even just a little bit of that type of text, a little bit of header, header usage could keep the focus on the data and keep it, interesting and not too busy, but help with that, kind of a little bit. Other things too, like, the grade distribution here, when you have the default options set, definitely adds up to more than 100%. And then you explained, oh, but we have X number of students who have an A, and like, oh, now I get it. But it wasn't apparent to me, until I had that explanation. So, you certainly know the usage much better than me. So if you are always able to walk people through it, then definitely kind of take some of that feedback with a grain of salt. But that's something I might be thinking about. I also might think a little bit about, potentially arranging the elements on the dashboard in a little bit different order. In general, we know that users kind of engage with a dashboard from left to right and from top to bottom. And so, if the grade distribution is kind of the most important thing that we want to highlight here, is there a way to rearrange so that that's on the top left? And then, we have a sense that everything else is, kind of helping to feed the changes to that. Or if the enrollment's the most important thing, maybe it is where it needs to be. But I would think a little bit about that and think, what are the things people are looking at most, and can we move that up and to the left, just to kind of, ease that load a little bit for our users. But in general, this is a really important subject. You've served up the data very well. The important question is there, the data is there, dashboard performance is really, really excellent. And I think just a few of those little design choices to kind of help with the clarity could really help move it to the next level. So great job.
Awesome. That's a lot of really good advice. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Next up, we have Kristen McKee, Coordinator of Learning Analytics and Supports for Oak Park and River Forest High School. So Kristen, I'll let you take over.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. I have slides. I'm not fancy enough to have the public dashboard, but I'll do my best. I'm coming from Oak Park River Forest High School. We are a one school district. Illinois has a weird thing where around Chicago, school districts are really small. So we are a one school district. And what that means is that I have many hats even in my current job. So I started my career as a boots on the ground educator, special ed teacher, and school psychologist, and then MTSS coordination. And because of how much data is in MTSS, they decided I would be good in this position. I do feel like the little engine that could amongst all this, these big districts who are showing a lot of really amazing dashboards. We're relatively new to Tableau, so I thought I'd throw my hat in the ring for this. And so, I just want to make sure I can click through. I just noticed since I'm sharing, there we go, perfect. Okay. All right, so I'm here sharing attendance dashboards, and one of the things, attendance in schools, I find to be a very difficult metric. So what we wanted to do, and since my job is one school district, I also oversee MTSS here still. We wanted to start understanding the story of how to look at data, moving from a more global to think global, act local. So one thing we're doing is monitoring our tiers. So using the attendance work model and the state-defined definitions of the attendance calculations, we developed this dashboard so that our leadership team and our district and building leaders can understand how does our student body look as a whole. And then you can't really see it, but underneath this is a table where we have student information. And if you click on one of the colors, just those students pop up. So if they wanted to see which students are in that 4% chronic absence, severe chronic absence, they could do that. And then they have 3 years of data on those students. So they could see 3 years of the calculations to see if this is a student who has always chronically been absent, or is this a student whose years going differently. So the bottom year is it's the current to date. And so you can see we're slightly doing better this year. And I don't know if people are familiar with attendance works, but they have thresholds on how to define attendance success. The next, we use parameters to filter out for different demographics. One of the things at Oak Park, we are a very equity-focused school, but we do have a lot of opportunity gaps. So we are consistently looking at how we serve different populations across different demographics. This one, you could see I had to block out a little bit because it was student privacy related. But I will say, after listening to Bo talk and listening to everybody, I was like, I've been thinking maybe this should be a filter, because when you filter for race, there's a lot of different bar charts. When you filter for different, more singular demographics, it looks a little bit different. But what this does is help us understand across our different groups how our different populations are impacted by attendance, and are there areas that we need to be aware of from an equity lens that we need to focus on more. So, and again, we look at all the different demographics in this way. So any feedback on how to improve this visualization would be welcome. One thing I wanted to point out was that you can see, I don't know if you can kind of see it, but up in the right-hand corner, we have an eye icon. And one of the things about working in a single school district is that everybody has a voice, and that's wonderful, but everybody wants information, right? So one of the ways we do that is we put in in the eye icon all the definitions and all the information that people want from the dashboard. And one of the important things about this one is that we are using the state-based calculation that for the attendance tier groups. And then, and that helps people understand, what do we mean when we say satisfactory? What do we mean when we say chronically absent students? And so this helps people know that they can go in that one area and get that information. This is another way our school looks at attendance, and our state looks at attendance, which is our average rate of attendance, the ADA. And what we do now for this one, we can monitor and understand what months are impacted differently, and do we have a certain month. So, you know, one of the things is this February, you can see we actually had a pretty good month compared to the last 2 Februarys. January was pretty average, which is surprising, because the weather in the Chicago area was brutal in January. So that's actually a really good thing. So this helps us understand month to month and then year over year. And so it helps us, again, look at these big picture trends. So again, with my job, I don't want to just look at big picture trends. I need to start looking and serving people who actually serve students, or boots on the ground people. So then I have to move from the district level down to the provider level. And the providers were telling me, hey, the cumulative rate that we look at for early warning system data, or we look at for the attendance data, that cumulative rate, when the denominator gets big, we don't know if a kid's doing better or not. So we developed the 15-day short-term attendance rate. So service providers can look and see if a student is been improving over the past 3 weeks, or are they flat, or are they declining? And so the users of this dashboard are people who actually are working with and serving students. That's why you can see there's many filters. There's a lot of different ways that people can filter for and find their list of students. They can export it, or they can just follow up on it. And the only other thing I will point out, in my little icon, I have to make sure people know that this is actually not the state dashboard. We use 2 different attendance rates, and this one is called total missed instruction, or as we lovingly call, butts in seat. This means that any code that a student has been missed, that instruction will count against them in the rate. So you have to kind of know it when you're looking at the 2 different dashboards, but it's really the audience that it's impacting. So for early warning system, we want to see any missed instruction, because missed instruction is going to impact how students perform. So that is something important that we want to make sure that our teams know as well. And then we want to do a really fine, I had to block out the student name. So this is 1 student, or maybe 2 students. And what this is period by period. So what this tells us is how students are attending each period of their day. So the previous one lets us know the cumulative rate, so that's all day. This one breaks you down to by period. So then we have students who have to go on an attendance contract, or they might lose their credit for the class. So if they lose the credit for the class, they're not getting punished for all their classes, it's just that one class. So teachers know how to follow up on students. Deans of discipline will follow up, counselors, social workers, intervention providers regularly pull this up and say, hey, why aren't you going to first period? Why aren't you going to 6th period? Oh, that's after your lunch. You're leaving for lunch and you're not coming back. So they can have those more nuanced conversation rather than just the global. So I guess the big thing that I'm trying to do when I build my dashboards is get information into people's hands that can be really highly actionable and translating to working with students. Challenges that we've had is attendance calculations are really tricky, because every student, they might not start on the same day. They might not have the same amount of classes. All these different things have been really tough to work out, especially with some of the time period stuff in Tableau. We've had to clean up attendance codes, because we realize people are using attendance codes differently, and the data looks different for that reason. And then also trying to build so people use. I've built dashboards have a lot of heavy graphics, and they don't end up getting used. At the end of the day, what I have found in a single school district is people just want information as cleanly as possible. And they also really like filters at my school. So they are always requesting new filters. So that's been a challenge without getting too filter happy, how to get people the right lists of students that they can then do intervene with students on. So that is it.
the biggest power of dashboard, especially in education, is providing us the information where we can actually act upon. Thank you so much. And Bo?
Yeah, thank you. So, what I like most about this project is that you have a clear focus on simple, actionable metrics. I open this up, I look at what you've done here, and I get the point right away. And it's another really good example of how simple chart types can really help tell this story well. And again, I love how you've gone from big picture down to student level stuff here. That's so impactful and such a nice flow. So here's a few things I'd consider to move this product forward. So the red, yellow, green kind of stoplight color pattern that we see here, it's really popular for projects like this. We see it all the time, and this is kind of a theme that cuts across a few of these to think about a little bit more. Red, yellow, green, it's immediately intuitive to a lot of people, but we do start to run into challenges with end users who are experiencing color blindness. I found that this doesn't tend to come up as quickly in education because we do know just demographically it tends to be a female-dominated field, and rates of color blindness are like 5 to maybe 10 times higher. So sometimes it can take a little bit longer for these kinds of things. But when we're using red, yellow, green to encode information, it can be really hard to distinguish what we're looking at sometimes. And so as this expands to more people, more users, things like that, definitely something to be aware of. And that's why you're going to see a lot of designs in the Tableau space using kind of blue and orange instead, because those are maybe a little friendlier to users with vision differences. They're very easy to distinguish for basically everyone. And I look at your header and your school's crest, and I see there's blue and orange right there, and there's also a green color, and you have things that you could potentially draw from the kind of branding or image that's already being used into some custom color palettes, and maybe consider just different uses of that to see what you think, and get kind of a little bit more of a tie into the headers, the crest. Like dashboards can start to feel really cohesive and cool sometimes when we see fewer colors, and kind of the theme can be a little bit more evident. Another thing I think about is when you're looking at, you had kind of called out that bar chart with the different demographic groups and kind of ideas about that. And when I'm looking at a graph like that, I'm thinking, what do we want our users to be noticing? And so another thing with kind of these stoplight patterns, particularly using the Tableau default colors, is that I might be using the term slightly wrong here, but like the saturation of these green and yellow and red and orange colors is actually kind of similar. And so like even if it is easy to tell the difference between them, nothing really pops in that layout. They're all kind of similar intensity, and what you notice is maybe just where you happen to look first. So I'm going to screen share very briefly. I apologize, it's not the
I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, not the most beautiful mock-up. I just did this in Keynote, but as we take a look here at kind of the sorry, one second. There we go. So as we take a look at the default view that you had here, I wonder here as I look at this, it's obviously good to know the satisfactory rate, but is that the thing we care the most about? Is that what we want to pop? And what would it look like? And again, your users better than me, so just see what you think. But what would it look like if we instead changed that green color to maybe a pale gray? And now we have, the exact same information conveyed, but if we are concerned about those at-risk or chronically absent groups, it definitely pops a lot more. We're not losing any information, but we open this up and we probably see, at least from my perspective, a good deal faster kind of where those areas are that might be jumping out a little bit. So that would be another thing I would think about design-wise. I'll stop sharing again. And then, just a couple more notes on this one. I would say too that, sometimes these kind of red, yellow, green color palettes, they're unavoidable because they're what leaders want to see. People get used to them. It's intuitive. And so sometimes we can't move away from that. In cases where we have stacked bars like this, I always like just adding a little white border then between the kind of parts of the stack, because then it's at least a little easier to kind of see where the segments start and end. Two other quick comments that I think kind of cut across a lot of the projects we're looking at today too. Anytime we have text tables, I always like to think about ways that we can elevate those with little visual hints. And, if I see 75 in one row of a table and 50 in the next one, it takes a while for me to process kind of the difference between those things. I know it's not too hard, but at the same time, Tableau has ways that we can have like kind of little pale bars even behind those numbers that kind of help people see even a little bit quicker, like this is a lot more than that. There's a great presentation at Tableau conference a couple of years ago by my friends Eric and Kate. It was 8 ways to elevate text tables. I'm going to paste the link in the chat here. This is a link to a Tableau public workbook on Kate's profile. You can download and see how they've done all this. But like basically everything they've done here is like an incredible way to take a text table, punch it up just a little bit pretty quickly to kind of help with that understanding. And yeah, lots of good ideas to think about there. Also, when you have lots of filters, I know sometimes that's unavoidable. Something you could try is maybe putting all of the filters into a collapsible container and then having like a show hide filters button, because sometimes when there's 30 filters at the top of a dashboard, we may need them, but that could be a different way to think about presenting it. But in general here, super useful and impactful set of projects here. This is really well done. And yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing. It's very cool.
No, thanks for the show hide filters. That's a great idea, and it would give more real estate to the actual data.
Thank you both. Thanks, Kristen. And next up, we have Aishwarya, an education analyst coming to us from American Paradigm Schools. So take it on.
Hello, everyone. Let me quickly share my screen first. So I'm an education data analyst at American Paradigm Schools. It's been roughly 2 years that I've been with APS, and I'm fairly new to education. A little bit about my school district. We are a K12 charter management organization located in Philadelphia. We have 4 charter schools under us with approximately 43,000 students. And sorry, my bad, 4,300 students. We are a diverse group of population with 23 spoken languages, 28% special education population, and 84% economically disadvantaged. Our commitment is equity and excellence for all learners while celebrating the uniqueness of our communities. So the topic that I'll be discussing today is course tracking, and the dashboard that I will be presenting is on digital programs. For those of you who are not familiar with this term, digital programs is edtech learning platforms that provides a personalized and adaptive instruction to students. They are aimed at closing the learning gaps. And the purpose of this dashboard was our district uses 5 core digital programs, and all of them had their own websites to track the usage. And every time anyone wanted to look at all of them, they had to go visit different websites. So the school leaders wanted one place where they can track the usage fidelity of different programs across different grades, across different schools. And that is how we came up with this dashboard. So the picture that you see on your screen is the first page of the dashboard. It has been divided into sections by the programs, and it also has been divided by weeks. So you can track the usage of every program every week on this dashboard. And then we have, of course, filters for school level and grade level. This would be the overview, the overall picture of the programs. But now let's say if someone wants to look at the detailed view of how the students are performing or whether they're meeting their benchmarks. So basically the student level or the classroom level information, then they would click on the detailed view here. And this would take you to the second page, which is this. The columns that you see here are all buttons to navigate to different programs. So these, if you click on these, they will take you to different dashboards by themselves. And these dashboards are standalone dashboards for all of the programs that we use at American Paradigm Schools. And in this detailed view, we would be able to see the classroom level information or the student level information. And this becomes very important for teachers to progress monitor their students and to look at how their class is performing in general. So that is why we came up with this detailed view. And we have created this detailed view by using URL actions on Tableau. So we had published all of the dashboards and then connected them with URL actions in Tableau itself. These dashboards are presented to our school leaders during the weekly meetings so they can track their school progress over time. And then the principals and the deans share these dashboards with their teachers so that they can track their students' progress over time. And a good thing about this is weekly updated, so they would track the usage fidelity every week. These dashboards have had pretty good impact on our district. The impact would be broadly divided into 3 categories. At the student or the school level, this has allowed the stakeholders to track their progress towards their quarterly goals. At the executive and compliance level, this has end of the year reporting very streamlined and also supports easier audits. And at the data level, this has enabled a faster load time and a more cohesive data reporting. Of course, going through different websites, we have now one place where we can track all of the progress. And just to show you a glimpse of what I'm talking about, I will present what we have in our system. So this is the overview page. We have filters for grade, school, and all of our 5 digital programs. And then if you go to the detailed view, this would take you to our all of the dashboards combined together. We can navigate to different dashboards, and this would take you to a different detailed view of every program. Yeah, so that was pretty much it from my side. I hope you learned something.
Yes, thank you so much. I love how you have so many dashboards that are interconnected and can provide information on all different programs and different data points. But
Yeah, so one thing that sticks out to me right away with this project is that you've acknowledged that different audiences want to see different things in different ways, and you've made some really clear design choices that reflect those differences. So I think that's really cool. These dashboards are clean. They're really labeled well, and they look really easy to work with. So every graph here, I know what I'm looking at and why, and yeah, just very kind of intuitive in general. You've also done a lot of really interesting things to add some visual variety here. So there's bar charts, line graphs, and pie and donut charts in what you've shown here. And there's also a variety of colors that help to draw attention. So it makes it interesting to look at, and draws people in that way. A couple things I wonder about are potentially making things even a little bit easier on your end users by having colors have a consistent meaning at least as much as possible. So like looking at the view that we have up now, so that orange color, there's 2 times where it means % with usage, and then there's 1 time where it means average minutes, and then there's 1 time where it means the 10th grade completion percentage. So these things are labeled, so I don't think it's necessarily confusing, but at the same time, if there are opportunities to use colors to kind of draw those through lines intentionally, I think that could be cool. I also again, love the use of color here. I wonder too, since you're kind of already playing with color within the titles a little bit, it could be a fun way to think about encoding information a little bit more as well. So even this very first graph at the top here, so you have your blue line for meeting usage, and then your orange line for usage, and then you have the floating Tableau color legend kind of next to that at the bottom left. Could be interesting to try a header where you take the word usage and make that orange, and then take the phrase meeting usage and make that blue. You could then potentially remove the kind of Tableau native legend, and it's just kind of a fun way to kind of use that space and color to not only be visually engaging, but then communicate that information in even a little bit different way. Another thing I take a look at is whether the pie and donut charts within these dashboards are communicating the information the way that we want to. I think pie and donut charts are super underrated. So I always enjoy seeing them used in ways that are cool here. But when I look at the kind of the Lexia Core 5 dashboard, where you have those donut charts with the white circle and the text in the middle, those orange and red slices, if I'm doing my mental math right, those metrics add up to a lot more than 100%. And then on the pie chart, there's metrics that add up to less than 100%. And so I like those chart types as a way to add variety, but I would encourage thinking about, using them for part to whole relationships or things that are going to add up to 100 or show proportions. And if we're comparing a couple things instead, sometimes the bar graph does just end up working a little bit better. But in general, there's a lot of cool stuff, really rich information here. It's super clear what you're presenting. And I think kind of a little more of that intentional use of color and making sure that we're matching the chart type to the data that we're trying to present could help elevate these even more. But awesome work.
Thank you so much.
Okay, it took me a while to find my unmute button. One more time for a gift card as we go along. We got a couple more presenters. We hope you can stay. We've kind of overstuffed here, but they're all so good. We don't want to miss anything. Jennifer, we might flip you around before Ginny, just because you haven't had a chance to present before. But first, let's go to this wheel of names. And the next $25 gift card winner is... Oh, sorry, Carolyn, it just jumped over to Timothy. Timothy, must be present to win. Let me know if you're there. And I will send you the gift card.
All right, so we've been trying to catch up on the side. I don't know if everyone's catching some messages. We're going to switch. We were going to have Jenny go. We have 3 more to go. So I'm going to have Jennifer actually take over the screen. We're going to have her go, and we're going to see if Jenny and Priyanka can come back and do this again. And maybe Bo or maybe the winner of TC26 would join us. I would love to get your feedback if you found this kind of round robin valuable. Took a lot of coordination, thanks to David and all of the volunteers. So if this is of interest to you to do this again, we can plan it, but of course, we're going to need your input. So put in the chat if you found this valuable, and I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. I have a new puppy also, and she's been in the kennel now for quite a while and will be anxious for me to get home and let her out. The other thing I just want to say on the slide here, I appreciate that you guys have curated things from LinkedIn. Unfortunately, I'm currently locked out of my LinkedIn account. You can see maybe from the picture, it's more than a few years old, and I'm kind of fighting with them to try to get access to my account. So if you try to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I'm not being rude and ignoring you. I just can't get it quite yet. So with that, we're going to go to the next thing here. All right, I'm coming to you from Ankeny Community School District. We're in central Iowa. We've got just under 13,000 students and 1,700 employees. We've got 18 different school buildings, an alternative center. Locally, we can brand our Tableau server as the data hub. So you can see that logo up there on the left, and that's made for some like a color palette that I draw from quite a bit for some local work. So the project that I wanted to share is one that I have started working with this year on some teams from beginning at one of our middle schools, and then it's expanded to some other middle schools, and then as well down to the elementary level, working with their student services team and principals as they want to be looking at data for their of their students potentially at risk, and more around social emotional behavior kinds of things, although we did include some grades information here too at the middle school level. And the challenge that I had is, rather than building a system that's based on like benchmarks for attendance rate or behavior referrals, we really wanted to think about how do we align that with a school's capacity to respond. So for example, it doesn't really do the school much good if they say, wow, 40% of our students need an individual check-in, check-out time because we can't serve that many students at a tier 2 or tier 3 level. So I wanted them to be able to think through their own local school's context and align what they're seeing with their capacity to respond. And but I couldn't do that with 18 different schools. I can't have 18 individual dashboards for every school needing something different. So my solution to that, to also make it be sustainable, was to agree on a common set of risk factors and then use a set of parameters that allowed each school to set their customized risk levels, that then they can use the custom view feature in Tableau, on the Tableau server, to share those. This was a new adventure for me in doing more of these parameters. It represented some growth on my part in that way. So let me get into the actual workbook and we can talk about how that works. I update the workbook theoretically, or the schedule we're trying to get to is that every 6 weeks, I'm updating the information that's there. So right now we're looking at information from the end of semester 1 because we're 6 weeks into semester 2 right now, and this will get updated later this week because teachers are busy entering grades right now. So for this particular middle school, they have some filters here to look by grade or by team, but they could go, back to other places and see what did our distribution look like at these other times of the year. And then so these the parameters here are set so that they can decide what counts as high risk or some risk for each of those factors, and then adjusting those obviously changes how many students fall in each of those categories. So for example, if I say like for majors, no, that's not maybe a good example. For minors here, if I say that, to be considered high risk, like 7 or more is what we're going to consider, that drops that number of students that fall in that category here. And then it calculates a total risk score. So every time there's a student is flagged as high risk for a factor, that counts as 2 points, some risk as 1 point. And so in this case, these 6 colored boxes, potential highest risk score that a student might have would be 12. Then we're doing the total by risk score here. That's what's showing then also based on the parameter down here. What do we say as a school is going to be our tier 3 minimum risk factor score? How do we think of our top 5% of students? What would that be? And then what would be our tier 2 minimum score? That's what is showing here in the yellow, and then down here. And then now, Bo, I'm very sensitive to the idea that you just talked about yellow, green, and red. So I'm going to have to think through that a little bit. You can see though, I did try to use color a little bit for these ones because it's part of my palette to correspond to which parameter they're adjusting. The only last thing I'll say about here, this SEL risk level, that's in gray because it doesn't actually count in towards the formula because not all students take our SEL screener, the survey, since we need parental consent for that. So teams would get that figured out. And then if they wanted to see who the students are in each of those, they can use go to this dashboard and see, which students and their levels, use the filters. I find that teams, once they've been able to figure out the scope of need in their school, then they can come here and download or see the data color coded this way, but also I have another one without the color that's just more optimized for download. So they could say, okay, narrow down the group of students and then export from this view into a spreadsheet. And then that's where they work with it there to add notes and things as a team. This last tab that's on here, this office visit detail, we're using a metric that they calculated. Students can go, if they decide they want to need to go visit the nurse or the counselor throughout the day, how many times are they doing that? And then they wanted to have a little more detailed visit for those students. Are they going into the counselor's office, the nurse? What did they say their purpose was? So that's what that one does. The only other thing I'll put out here, and maybe you have a good, or it's a frustration for me here, is I can set the format of the like attendance information to be a decimal at only 2 points. But when it comes into the parameter, because that's feeding in automatically when the workbook opens, you can see it's this ridiculously long decimal that nobody calculates attendance out to that bar. And I haven't figured out how to make that not be so long yet. So, all right. That's all I have for overview, but I welcome your feedback.
Awesome, thank you. So this is a really cool project. There's a lot of nice interactivity here with all the parameters you've included. The tab that's optimized for download. Again, I know that is often a pain point as we're developing dashboards, but it works really well. It's very cool. I think my only feedback there is whether, these are single option filters right now. Do you want a multiple option filter with an apply button or something like that? But, if it's working for your end users, definitely not something you'd necessarily need to change. So the summary page here, my first take when I look at this, there's definitely a lot of colors. You have done something really clever here, the way that you have done the kind of borders around the tables themselves versus the borders around the parameter controls. That's great. That's kind of an instant visual through line. Like when I talk about using colors with intention to communicate something, really, really nice example. So very well done there. I do wonder, we do have some cases here of kind of the same color being used multiple times. Personally, if I were using green to mean low risk, I probably wouldn't also make office visits green. Maybe there's kind of a different way to communicate that. But again, not necessarily a problem. Things are clearly labeled here, and that's just kind of personal preference. I think along with that, these tables here, again, useful, clear information. I look at these really big differences between 1 and 7 and 91, like for example, in that major behavior risk level. And I think, okay, when I'm looking at that in text, kind of the huge difference between those numbers maybe doesn't appear to me right away. Could be another example. I'd linked earlier in the chat kind of the potential of using bars within tables, just kind of a little subtle background to give that visual hint. I think this could be a really great place to do that. I think for the parameters here, the way that you tied together kind of the table with the parameter, again, is really nice. You could maybe consider putting the parameter control kind of right under the table that it's controlling, or even in kind of a little pop in, pop out window. But you know that better than me. If your users are kind of very frequently screenshotting the part on the left and putting that in slides or something, I definitely wouldn't do that. I think also you mentioned kind of the bar graph at the top left here with kind of the red, yellow, green, colors to indicate the proportions here. I think that, this is a case where I do want to say too, like, I know sometimes red, yellow, green is unavoidable, and I don't think it's necessarily something we should never use. David shared in the chat earlier kind of a really beautiful red, yellow, green breakout that is a little more, friendly maybe, but I think this is a case too where you could actually stick with those colors, but instead of having a stacked bar here, maybe you do 3 bars side by side that are kind of labeled low, medium, high risk. And then you get the double benefit, when you set the parameters in such a way where that red slice is really small, you don't have the number. And so if you have the 3 bars side by side labeled with the numbers, that might be great. That might be actually a way to keep the colors if you like them the way they are and have that information there. Because ultimately for me, when I recommend against using green, yellow, and red, kind of the core of that is to avoid using that as the only way to encode the information. But if I have bars side by side that are labeled and also have the number, even if I can't perceive the difference in those colors, I still get all the information that I need. So that could be a way to think about it. But in general, the information here is great. Interactivity is great. I actually really like that Data Hub logo. That's really cool as well. So I wanted to call that out. And yeah, I think this is a really, really actionable tool and really well done.
Thank you. I appreciate those suggestions. I get ready to roll out the next one. So there's things I can do right away.
Yeah, no, I also like, thank you all. I want to put in there, we are running close to time. We appreciate all the time and effort that you've gone into it. My apologies to Ginny and to Priyanka, but I think we have some ideas for June. Some people are liking it. I don't know if Bo will be available or anything, but his feedback has been terrific. We really appreciate you all. I'm sure people are going to come back and look at this video over and over again. Stephanie, were you the one who's going to close us out?
I was. We are at time. There's a lot of slides. You'll get a link right afterwards with this video. The PowerPoint has a lot of great links. The rest of the slides were just the reminders of all of the resources that we have online, continuing your professional development, all of the resources on the Learning Hub, etc. And then just stay engaged with us, reach out to us if you're wanting to share. If June doesn't work, know that we have a lot to plan for the next school year. And all of the great feedback has been much appreciated today. Thank you, Bo, and all of the presenters today. I know it's vulnerable to get out here and to share your work and to have someone comment. And I think you all handled it with grace. And hopefully everyone else kind of took something away and can begin to apply it on their current work or any work that they're planning on working on this spring and over the summer. So thank you all for joining. We appreciate you all being here with us and engaging in that chat conversation. And enjoy the next couple months. Hopefully to see you in San Diego at TC26. Thanks all.
Thank you.
And there I've stopped the recording, but for those that can continue on, if you have questions,